Hello and welcome to the Ballbuster Radio Show. We're your hosts Paul and Scott. Say hi, Scott.
How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing splendid. How are you?
I'm not too bad at all.
All right. So I heard you just went to, we were talking about this a while. You went to the convention yesterday with the Ahmadiyans, and how was that?
Yeah, the National Ahmadiyyan Muslim community had their big conference. Not just yesterday, it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, yeah? So it's still going on today?
Yeah, but for the English-speaking only guests, yesterday was predominantly in English, so I could understand, or I could at least understand what they're saying.
That's good.
Yeah, well, don't forget Friday is their holy day, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's when they have all the prayers and stuff, so it wouldn't have,
We wouldn't have benefited
busy
from
anyhow,
that.
but yeah, it was. Now they still had prayers and stuff while I was there.
Obviously.
And one of their required prayers that time came along, and so everybody stopped and did their prayer stuff together.
Oh, yeah? And that must have been pretty neat to watch.
Yeah, it was. Now, like Nazir was saying, there's very specific movements that some imams and some sects of Islam are very strict and they don't follow the proper. But apparently I don't know the meaning. He can come on.
Yeah.
He will be coming on. He said near the end of August he could come back. But it actually lasted, I don't know, 10 minutes. It was.
I could not do something repetitive for 10 minutes. I could just simply not. I'd be a horrible Muslim.
Yeah.
For more than one reason,
I mean,
obvious, but
yeah.
that's one of a big reason. I just could not do something for 10 minutes straight and just non-stop. It'd drive me insane, literally. I'd just lose my mind and be like, I can't do this!
Well, it really reminded me of watching some really lazy line dancing, but with better music. So.
Oh, you enjoyed the music at least?
I like their instrumentals. I don't. What they pass off for singing and what I think of as singing is different, as what Andrew thinks is singing is actually a guy talking poorly in bad grammar. So yeah, it's not something I would typically listen to.
A little fun fact for you. I learned this when I was in band camp actually.
Band camp? How did I know?
It's where I learned most of my life.
I'll bet.
Yeah. In the Western and most of the Northern Hemisphere countries in the world, we have an 8-scale note system, right? Yeah. And places like India or the more Middle Eastern type countries, they have a 12-scale note system.
Yeah.
So
if you want to hear that translated into rock and roll, listen to the first 2 albums of the Tea Party.
Yeah.
That's what makes them unique, is they have the Mid-Eastern, Indian percussion behind it. That timing is what makes it their songs very different. Actually, Zeppelin played around with that too. So. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. And places like China and Japan, or for lack of a better term, I'm pretty sure this is a racist slur, the Oriental countries, they only have 5 notes. So that's pretty interesting. A little fun fact, a little bite-sized fact for you guys to take home.
So it was interesting. They had a number of speakers. It was basically what you would expect for the most part. Some speakers were, I think, really the focus is on their message of peace, which is great, and that's the part that I stand behind.
Peace all.
And well, it's kind of funny because I just wanted to go. They wanted me to actually interview some people for the show, and I said, you know what? No, I'm. This is my day off today.
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything today other than this. This is the biggest. I came here for some music and free food, so I'm here to be entertained, not to work. So they were.
Did you actually say that? I'm here for free food and music?
Yeah. Well, to Nazir I did, not to the organizers.
I was gonna say because the point of you going there was probably for them to try and convert you. So just tell them that I have no interest of giving it to you guys.
It's interesting because unlike some Muslims I've had conversations with, and many Christians too, once they realize that no, I'm not a very good. I'm not. I would be a huge feather in your cap, but it ain't happening.
Mm-hmm.
So getting back to what the hell was I talking about?
You were talking about they asked you to interview people in the
Oh yeah. At the end of the day, there was actually a news crew there for some network. but a real. Anyway, I got interviewed at the end of the day to see what
That's
my
pretty
take,
cool.
why I was there, and that kind of thing. So,
What'd you say on air?
well, I was
Were you honest?
very honest.
Good job.
What do you think?
I'm just trying to think here.
I'm
I'm just
nothing
trying.
if not honest, right?
I was gonna say if I saw you on TV saying, "Oh, I was always been very interested in learning and experiencing the Muslim culture," I'd be like, "You're half right. I can half believe you."
I'm very interested
You're
in other
interested.
cultures, not
Not necessarily.
I mean, I'm not going to join up. I'm not looking to sign on any dotted line for any organization, but no, it's certainly interesting, and it's not their culture; it's Canadian culture now. Right?
Oh, yeah.
They're here now, so there are
Well,
not our
actually,
distant neighbors; there are immediate neighbors. They're among us, so why wouldn't
culture
you
within
take the
culture. That's
opportunity.
Canada.
Yeah, it's no longer a them thing. These different cultures are in Canada, so it's best to learn about them and, like we've said many times, get rid of the inherent fear of the
Yes.
unknown, right? So you can have some rational discourse with people. Many can't still, so that's why I go.
Is there
And the thing that, like I was saying, the main focus of the day of really the whole conference was the message of peace, which they say love for all, hatred for none. Which
Thumbs up for that.
I can't really argue with that.
Yeah, that's good. As long as
Much like my motto, I love you until you give me reason not to.
exactly. In
So
which case
it's
you're on.
pretty compatible with my worldview. And like I said in the interview, well, I am an atheist, but the reason why I'm here is I appreciate the fact that these people are wrong peacefully.
That's a great way
So,
to put it. Yeah.
I think you're wrong about what
Why
you're saying,
that's-
but the way you're saying it, I give you,
Thumbs up for that.
thumbs up for that, absolutely. And like I said, I'd like to take wherever you've diverged from other religious groups with the violent and non-violent thing, whatever that catalyst or magic ingredient is, I'd like to, take that, put it in a bottle, harness it, and go and spray it on everybody else.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm trying to figure out with these people is what is it that makes them a little bit different. And I guess the same can be said about there are many peaceful, we always come down that I'm coming down on religion, which in general I certainly am, because of the mechanism behind religion that I think is damaging, which is a faith-based thinking. But certainly when I come across a group that seems to be doing no harm, I like to, they're an anomaly to me, because they're like that. So yeah, it was a fun day. Interesting food. Justin Trudeau was there.
That's good. It's always
That's kind of neat.
nice.
So we had some short, sweet speeches, much like you'd expect at any conference.
Yeah.
Some were long, drawn out, boring, and terrible. There was one addressing Islam and science, which was abysmal. It was just that's the weakest part of their game. Is
It drove you
they
nuts
have
to
to
listen
decide
to it,
if,
wasn't it? Didn't it?
well, when it comes to religion and science, you can go one of two ways, right?
Exactly.
We can say, no, we're going to try to retrofit everything that we've learned in the last 1,400 years and try to make that fit what was written long ago.
Exactly.
Or you can just simply say, and I think it's a better tact that when I'm talking to Christians is, flat out, this is not a science book, this is not dealing with science, but then I get a guy trying to tell me, well, in the Quran or in the Bible or somewhere here, right here, there's a scripture that's talking about atoms, that material is made up of things that we can't see, and I'm like, wow, what a useless passage.
Exactly.
It wasn't useful until we figured it out ourselves.
Exactly.
Wow, why waste the ink?
Well, I'm sure.
So
no,
you can
I was gonna say-
choose and just say, you know what, we don't have a problem with things that good tools that are useful.
Speaking of, actually, I've been saying this a couple of times. Nobody's ever said I was wrong, so I'm assuming I'm right, and I'm pretty sure I was with you when I was. I'm pretty sure I was with
That's
you.
a fallacy right there.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I was with you, and you haven't called me out on it, so I'm
Okay.
trusting you.
So you're assuming because I didn't jump all over you that you have
Exactly.
to be right, and that's probably a correct way of thinking.
Exactly. Well, it's not, but I'm gonna double check it.
Not normally, but with me sitting beside you all the time and jumping on every.
Exactly. So it builds a trust. I believe it was one of the some more I can't remember what his name is. He's a lot of comedy things. Whatever. We were watching a video at your house. It was a YouTube video, and I believe one of the cardinals said that the Bible was outdated.
Bill Maher.
Bill Maher.
Religulous?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He said the Bible is outdated. Did the Pope actually say that?
No, that wasn't a pope. That was a
cardinal said
bishop
that.
or a cardinal or a.
So somebody said that, so I'm sure the Pope agrees, because he wouldn't be saying something that the Pope didn't agree with.
I'm sure a lot of people would agree, but I mean that's a very broad statement. There's things that have to be fine-tuned. There's no question. And when you see that doctrine does change in a church, clearly they had to upgrade some things, which I can't necessarily.
Because with the Pope accepting gays into their religious circle or whatever,
well, if you think about it,
you'd have to say that the Bible's outdated in order to make that a legitimate claim.
Yeah, and I don't like to put people in a lose-lose situation all the time, because that is kind of what you would do in regards to Scripture. If they don't change it, then clearly you're outdated.
Exactly.
If they do change it, we can say, aha, see, you claim to have ultimate knowledge to begin with, and you were wrong about one thing. So it is a difficult position for a theist to be in. I'll certainly grant that. And I would much rather. I keep knocking that. Sorry. I keep not apologizing, but letting them off the hook when they do admit or when they do change something. I don't.
Admitting you're wrong is never a bad thing. If you're going to stick to your religious thing, that's okay. No. But you have to admit when you're wrong. When you're wrong, you're wrong.
I don't want to make it so it's difficult for somebody to change their mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know I do. Or
more or less,
that
yeah.
position. I mean, not just me. Atheists would jump all over somebody if they went, we've changed this. So you didn't have it right in the first place, like you've claimed, which is, again, I suppose they're setting themselves up to. When you have absolute knowledge or something's an absolute, you're pretty much setting yourself up to fail.
Exactly.
I mean, there's been a number of people that have said in the last 200 years, basically anything that was worth inventing has already been invented. Now, a number of people have said that over the years.
And then the Snuggies came along.
And, I mean, today you say that, and tomorrow you're proven wrong. Well, probably by the time I get home I'm proven wrong, right?
Exactly.
So you don't want to set up to fail. But, the Catholic... I think really the best thing to do is to abolish the Catholic Church to begin with, bankrupt it, getting the 1.4 billion Catholics to stop supporting them altogether, let them go bankrupt, let them die on the vine.
This will go for all religions, in my opinion.
And start over again. I'm not saying get rid of your goofy beliefs. You have goofy beliefs. That's your right, but it's your organization.
Yeah, cause
almost completely removed from the religious aspect of it.
And
just as an organization, it's criminal. So.
And some of the most diehard the theists that I know who believe in Catholicism or Christianity, whatever sect they believe in, they're a part of, most of the time they admit the church is which is the biggest problem with the religion. Well, although that's not entirely true, it's certainly a big part.
It certainly makes them look bad. It doesn't give them. Any organization, and again, we don't even necessarily have to couch this in religious context when we're talking about an organization. That if you belong to an organization, and I know from the different jobs I've had, for example, my performance was affected by how good I felt about the company I was working for. Right? I like to feel proud of myself, proud of the company I keep, proud of the company I work for. Having so many scandals that people are now, I don't even know if it registers with people anymore when the Catholic Church is caught doing something horrendous, which is almost a weekly basis. The reports that came out last year from the UN citing not decades, not centuries, but possibly longer,
like millennia,
of systematic abuse and cover-up within the organization. Now, when you have that rooted so deeply, as well as other things like there's a whole other aspect of the money laundering and where the Vatican, which is an autonomous country, don't forget, where they stash their money, they basically stash it in a lot of banks in Italy. it's foreign currency as far as the Italians are concerned, but they don't have a lot of control over it. And even asking for, why are you requesting this large sum out? Things that they would do with other corporations or other country representatives, when they do that, other countries in the area come down on them. So
Wow.
it's when you really it's the last true theocracy on the planet, as far as I know. There's a lot of quasi ones, and even England is still considered theocratic. It's a theocratic monarchy.
But
at
it's
least on
complete.
paper, but in practicality,
No one
I
cares.
think it's maybe. I think it's actually less than 50% of the country now have some claim to a Christian belief. So.
And it's not only that, like, even especially with organizations, even things like schools of thought, like feminism. If you're a part of something and they do something bad, you're almost guilty by association. People are like, oh, you're Catholic or whatever, so you're believing all those incidences with the priests and the young children. It's like, no, I don't support that, but I'm part of this religion. I'm not part of the church. It doesn't matter what you do. You're simply guilty by association, and people need to reboot everything.
No, that's certainly true. And at a time, see, there's two excuses you can use for continually supporting the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, well, I'm claiming ignorance. I had no idea these things were going on, and
That makes you a fool.
these things are horrendous. On my Facebook page, I popped up the PBS's Frontline documentary on the
I've been meaning to check that out.
secrets of the Vatican, which I knew a lot, or I thought I did, but it blew my mind, and it really hits home that the opposite of good is not evil; it's complacency, which I think now is the reason why people continue to support the Catholic Church. You can't use the excuse that you didn't know anymore.
Exactly, because it's
that's
everywhere.
gone. That's gone. You can't.
Unless
That's a
you're
bogus
Amish.
excuse. Yeah, unless you are, in a third world country, but you don't have to be told that these bad things are going on. You're experiencing it.
Exactly.
Chances are. So I think it really comes to was it a week ago or 10 days ago? There was the report that there was 800 baby skeletons found
I've never heard of that.
buried near on the property of a Catholic church, not in Africa, this was in Ireland, and this was
Wow.
this was part of a church that also housed a labor camp for bad girls. Labeled bad girls by.
You guys won't be able to see the expression I just had until you see the YouTube video. Wow.
Well, I mean, and that's the problem is, so here's the cycle. The Catholic Church creates, makes the young girls vulnerable by their take on, safe sex. No. The only thing is abstinence only.
Oh my God.
Unmarried, which is not practical, especially long before
Exactly.
the internet, hell, long before cable. Yeah, we have sex. We're sexual creatures. The abstinence only is a good sign that you've probably left your brain somewhere.
Exactly.
So you have that take on it.
Mhm.
What happens if a girl, not a guy, but a girl does get pregnant out of wedlock? Well, the church now labels that person as
Harlot.
bad, right? Yeah. Unclean, unwanted.
Mhm.
So they've created the problem, they've exacerbated the problem, and to deal with the problem, they put them in slave labor camps. When the child is eventually born, I guess we now know where some of them ended up.
That's horrible.
This isn't 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago that we've uncovered. Archaeologists didn't uncover this. This is within the last 100 years that this grave has been added to. So, and these labor camps for wayward girls, we had those in Canada too. There's still survivors of those labor camps
That's shameful.
live in Canada. I think W5 did a show
Yeah.
on it.
Bankrupt the church. Let's do it.
Well, we've only touched the surface of the things. I mean, ask yourself, why did Ratzinger quit? You don't quit. That's
Yeah.
You don't quit as Pope. That hasn't happened in over 400 or 600 years.
Wait,
You
when
don't-
did Rock Singer quit?
a couple of years. What?
I wasn't educated.
Yeah, right before the last guy was elected, pretty fast. Francis is. I mean, he's a pretty face, but the way that Ratzinger left the church in such shambles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's now it's all PR. The problem is it's still the same product. It's still the same organization. Coke can change their name to Fanta so they can sell pop to the Nazis.
Yeah.
It's still the same corporation.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter how much makeup you put on that pig. It's still the Catholic Church. Yeah, so I recommend a new name, maybe Neo-Catholicism, but redecorate with hand grenades and start over again.
Exactly. All right, so we're gonna take a little break. We're gonna play a really special interview for our nons. This is with Spencer. He's the
He's a director of the CFI, the Center for Inquiry branch in Sudbury.
That's pretty cool. So we got a nice little video of him, and we're gonna hope you guys learn something from it.
Yeah, today we're joined by Spencer Lucas, the director of the Sudbury chapter of CFI, the Center for Inquiry. How you doing, Lucas?
Great, thanks.
This is a fairly new chapter in Sudbury that I'm really interested in. But first, could you give me a little bit of just a quick bio on yourself? Just a few minutes. Tell me a bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm originally from Wales. I immigrated with my family when I was 7 to northern Ontario, to Timmins actually. And I grew up in a non-believing home. So parents were always atheists, certainly in my lifetime. And my grandparents on my mother's side were also atheists. In fact, I remember the first time that I ever heard the word humanism or humanist was from my maternal grandmother when I was 8 or 10 or something like that. And I'd never really heard that word before, and she didn't exactly put it into context. So it was sort of a long time later before I sort of understood what that word meant and properly identified with it. But I think I've always sort of had a skeptical nature, and I think even though I grew up in sort of an atheist home, we never specifically talked about there not being a God. It was just, in some respects, sort of taken for granted. So you weren't told that there wasn't a God. You could never assume that there was one. It wasn't sort of until I went to school and maybe a few years in that I even knew that religious people existed. I was fairly sheltered, and not sort of purposely so, but just my cousins were atheists. And as young kids, you didn't talk about religion. So it wasn't even until maybe I was 8 or so that I knew of religion and that adults believed in this thing called God. And for me as an 8-year-old, it probably sounded like adults believed in Santa Claus. It was that weird to me, and I always found it really strange that these people who were much taller than me and much smarter than me believed in things which I couldn't believe in, that were seemingly magical and, well, quite literally unbelievable. So I think sort of from that time, I had this sort of intense curiosity for religion. I've never lost that. In fact, it's arguably grown over the years, and it's influenced many things I've done. When I went to university and eventually kind of gravitated into psychology, the idea of the psychology of belief, even in my undergrad thesis I had, when I was studying morality, I looked at political and religious ideology as independent variables to look in how professionals made or decided factors on moral dilemmas. So it's always been fascinating to me, And probably when I went to TAM, the amazing meeting in 2010, I think it was TAM 8 anyway. One of the largest skeptical conferences internationally. But I walked into that room and saw 1,200 different skeptics, arguably the majority of them atheists, even though it's not particularly an atheist conference. The Venn diagram overlaps pretty tightly in that community. I think, sort of tongue in cheek, I had a sort of religious experience in the sense that it kind of dawned on me, oh, it kind of feels good to be in a room with a lot of like-minded people, where you can come up to a stranger and start talking about, Letter to a Christian Nation by Sam Harris, and you can feel pretty confident, A, they know who Sam Harris is, and B, they've probably read the book and have 1,000 different ideas about it. And that was a new experience for me. I've always been a very out atheist. I used to joke when I was a young kid that when religion would come up, I would always identify as orthodox, just to get the obvious response Orthodox what, and I would say I'm an Orthodox atheist, and they would just sort of be left with confusion. I mean, I've always been very vocal about being out, and that's, every one of my friends have always known really early on what my worldview is. So soon after that experience at TAM, I started using Facebook as a means for atheist activism, and that eventually led me to the Sudbury Humanist Association. I ended up taking over the group there, and recently in January affiliated with the national organization of the Centre for Inquiry Canada.
So to kick off the opening of the new chapter in Sudbury, you guys had a bus campaign, I believe?
Yeah, we decided January 13th, we invited Justin Tranche up, who is the spokesperson for CFI Canada, to do some media launches on that particular day, and we kicked it off with a couple of events. Besides some media coverage, we had a presentation about the One School system, which was sort of near and dear to the hearts of many people in our organization, and we also kicked it off. That was the first official day of a month of having an ad at the back of a Sudbury bus, and I believe the slogan was "Don't believe in God, you're not alone." So it was pretty benign, low-key kind of slogan. We had gathered the group around a while before to discuss different slogans. We actually put 7 of our favorites up for a vote, and that was the one that came out on top. It was interesting because I was kind of worried that it was going to be so non-threatening, so benign, so unprovocative that the media wouldn't be interested, that we wouldn't get any public reaction. And as benign as it was, we got a ton of media coverage, a lot of public reaction. So,
Was that positive reaction, or was it quite mixed? Or?
well, it was mixed, as you could probably guess there to be. I think overwhelmingly, it was positive. It was positive in a couple of key areas. I mean, we had, just as sort of a little guide to the metric of interest, we had 99 people on our Sudbury Humanist Association Facebook page the day before we sort of leaped over and became affiliated with CFI Canada. And within 2 to 3 months, that number went up to 150 plus, kind of overnight. So the people were finding us, and 100% of the people that joined our group over that very short period, because that 99, that took about 3 years to develop. 3 or 4 years to develop, and we practically doubled that in about 3 months. So it worked as far as an advertising campaign, and I mean it was more than that. It was also an educational campaign as well for the public. But every single person that joined our group joined it because of the media coverage and not because of the actual sign on the bus. No one person joined our group because they said they saw the physical sign on the back of the bus. They saw the reaction to the sign on the back of the bus.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. But we did get some negative reaction. We got it from some interesting sources. There were people posting on Facebook that this was the literal sign, pun intended, of the end times, which surprised me, from Sudbury. But we have our fundamentalists like any other community, I'm sure. A small but vocal minority. We had a city councillor who was noted to be really offended by the sign. And when I was talking to somebody in the mayor's office, I kind of deconstructed that offense by really talking about what the message of the sign was. That there are people who don't believe in God. I mean, that's just a factual statement. And that if you find yourself among those people who don't believe in God, in Sudbury, we have a community for you, so you're not alone. I mean, that is sort of deconstructing that message, which you could break down further as to, like, we exist. Non-believers, we exist. We exist in your community and in every community. And so essentially, what I was trying to convey to the mayor's office is this particular city councillor what seemed to be offended by the existence of atheists. And that if you were to substitute any other demographic, you know, black Canadians, women, gay people, if I don't think he would vocalize his offense at the existence of these other communities in his city. So it was a direct form, I think unintentional. I mean, as far as I know, this is a nice, decent person who was actually a fairly respected city councillor, but it shows you sometimes the insidiousness of prejudice and the vaulted position of the religious community and religious privilege.
So, what kind of things do you have on the go for the future? What kind of things will CFI in Sudbury be taking a look at?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things that we want to do. We are doing quite a good job in like I said, in growing the community, and now that we wanted to hit a sort of a certain kind of critical mass of members, because like in any organization, there'll be leaders and followers, and so the more people that we had out, the more potential leaders that we had, people who are more active, who want to take a more of a leadership role, and we've hit a certain number of people now where it's making the entire group more viable. So I think that will be good. In keeping with the message of the bus campaign, we really wanted to develop a community. One thing that I heard over and over again was, I've not always been an atheist, but I would hear things like, I've been an atheist for a long time. I've always been desperate to belong to a community. I had no idea you guys existed, and I'm thrilled that there's a place that I can go and hang out and sort of let my hair down and be and sort of speak my mind more comfortably. Whereas a lot of people in our group are not out. They're not out to their co-workers and so on. That there are people who feel, probably quite correctly, that they'll lose customers and business and so on, or friendships even, if they're out. So this is really crucial for them. So we've developed some social networking. Every month we meet at Finn McCool's. We call it Skeptics in the Muck Pub, and every month we have a brunch at the Holiday Inn, which we call Brunch Beyond Belief. So there's a couple of opportunities every single month for people to gather, and it's always really intelligent and engaging and fun conversation. We have speakers every now and again. They're kind of sporadic. We'd like to get that more solidified as time goes on. I also started, I went back to school recently to finish my master's, and I kind of used that as an excuse, given that I'm a student, to start a student club at Laurentian University. There's been 5 or 6 different religious clubs at the university for a very long time. We have, I think, at least 2 different kinds of Christian clubs, a Jewish club, a Muslim club, and 1 or 2 others. And there's never been a secular, atheist, agnostic, free-thinking club in Laurentian's history, and I wanted to change that. And we got a group formed just this past school year. We call it the Laurentian University Secular Humanists, or LUSH, which I like. And during our last campaign, we had a young guy join the Sudbury CFI group, and he said, "You know what you should do? You should start a university group." And I said, "Well, as it happens, I just started one. Would you like to be the president of that group? Because obviously it's something that I can't maintain really past next year." So even though he'd only virtually belonged to the Sudbury CFI group for about 15 minutes, he had made some sort of commitment to taking over the Laurentian Humanists in this coming September. So we're really excited to get that off the ground, and even though it'll be a sort of a separate organization to Sudbury CFI, I think it'll be a nice play back and forth. I think it's really important to have a campus group in communities that have colleges and universities. So I think we'll be able to help each other out in the future. So we're really looking forward to that.
Well, I appreciate your spending some time with me, Spencer. That really is quite inspiring what's going on in your community. Something's going on in Sudbury. You guys seem to be really well organized, so I guess it certainly points to good leadership in the community. So I thank you for that. Something's going on in Sudbury that we need to pay attention to. So,
Great.
So we will check in with you again, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Check us in again in several months or so and see what we're up to. That'd be good.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to follow you guys and see where you go.
Perfect.
Okay, very good, Spencer. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Great. Bye.
All right, thank you very much, Spencer. That was definitely very educational. Very, as you said yourself, very inspiring. The kind of stuff that's going on in this community.
They're very well organized.
That's good.
I mean, you know what it's like for you and I trying to organize just a coffee in the afternoon. And my experience has been, and maybe it's a lot of it is me as well, that atheists just don't congregate well together. Now I mentioned that to Spencer, and his experience is quite different. He said, no, that's not true. That's it's just a lot of atheists don't know there's an outlet. There's a stigma behind who you are if you're an atheist. It's just very difficult, I find, organizing things. Now, there are some things coming up in the fall that I might be helping. Spencer's asked me to give him a hand with. There might be some kind of a conference that we're looking at getting some speakers, similar to what I went to in Canada. A smaller version of that to start off with, but it actually is fairly easy to start getting speakers of prominence to come to things.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's difficult to get experts in any field or people who are sought after as speakers, but the atheist community is actually fairly generous. I found, like, just when you and I are doing this little project, you know, the assistance I get from guys who are, you know,
Bigger.
know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Is inspiring too. So that's now he talked about the amazing meeting, the TAM meeting, number 8, I think it was. That was his experience where it's like, holy crap, I am not alone. I'm not a freak. I'm not eccentric. All the things that I kind of felt.
Yeah, I think
Thinking that I was the only one that thought this way, right? So my TAM was my Kamloops experience, and if we can bring that experience locally and have more people experience that, I think all the better.
good luck with that, because I could be wrong, but my take, especially as a student, you know, with an atheist sort of view, as a student, being an atheist is sort of like a side thing for us. Our main focus, especially in Peterborough, because it's a student-oriented city, is that, you know, we're going to school, we're learning about things, it's pretty stressful, and that's what we're worried about.
Mm-hmm.
But whereas when you ask somebody if they say they're an atheist, yeah, I'm an atheist, but they don't really act on it because it's not really something they have time or motivation to put effort in, and I think that's probably our biggest problem, because...
And and certainly to a point that would be true. We have guys like Alexander and other people that I didn't know existed that no, they're actually very outspoken. They're not passive with their atheism like a lot of students would. And understandable if you've got, you know,
midterms coming
you're
up,
working
stuff
on a
like that.
degree or a diploma or something. Yeah, you probably should be concentrating your efforts to that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you're at a stage 2 atheist level right now, where it's like, okay, now I can see that there's probably no God, but and I don't have any anger, and I've kind of gotten over being pissed off at the things that I used to have to do and say and be a part of. You kind of quickly get over that.
Mhm.
Most people do. But stage 3 is when you go from stage 2, which is, yeah, I'm an atheist, but you know, I'll let people believe what they want to believe, and I'll believe what I want to believe, and that's fine. And a lot of people are at that spot until somebody asks you the question, and you go and do the research, and you do your thinking, and you go to conferences, and you talk to many people who have many life experiences. What's the harm of religion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and when you get the answer, that takes you to level 3, which is I'm a conscientious atheist,
Mm-hmm.
which is another way of saying anti-theist. I'm not complacent. I'm not a mute witness, bystander to.
I'm not suffering from apathy.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't go, oh yeah, somebody's getting screwed over, somebody's rights are being trampled on, and
I'm guilty
trying to
as
be
charged for
consistent.
that.
I mean, we do that when even in non-religious areas, we just had a discussion about feminism and human rights,
Mm-hmm.
which had nothing to do with religion. But one of the biggest when you
Reviews.
have the damage that religion has done, yeah, it is important to speak up.
Exactly. But that's definitely...
So we'll get some links up for Spencer,
Mhm.
for the CFI group in Sudbury and for Canada. I'm actually a member of CFI Canada. So if we had enough interest, then we could generate it.
Oh, yeah.
In Peterborough locally, I would look at trying to get a chapter open. A chapter that would stand behind us, let the community know there's an organization locally, and maybe help with organizing very local stuff in Peterborough, get speakers and stuff like here.
I can see big things happening
Bite-sized
to the...
stuff, right? Like you said, a lot of students don't have time. I mean, not everybody can take off. I can only afford to do it once.
Mm-hmm.
Take off for 3 or 4 days to a full-blown conference. But if we can have little bite-sized pieces that people can, and
Just stand in
again,
the corner
if
trying
you
to hand out flyers.
saw, well, yeah, and if you saw the diversity of the speakers that you can typically get at these conferences, it's quite impressive that how it's not the same thing, not the same guy telling his non-story,
Mm-hmm.
or how he was, bothered or repressed or something by religion. It's very diverse. Where we had Carolyn Porkel, who is Dan and I just watched an episode of her on Seth Andrews' podcast. This is a woman who is responsible for getting us the picture that's used for the inspirational talk that Carl Sagan gave on the pale blue dot. She's also the lead imaging team leader, I guess, for the Cassini mission around Saturn. She's a girl that
Cassini mission around Saturn.
yeah, but we have these probes going out, and she's responsible for making sure the imaging, and she also does a lot of stuff with the timing of when pictures are taken.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And she actually timed it out where the last time they turned around and took a picture of Earth from deep space like they did with that original Carl Sagan pale blue dot picture.
Yep.
She actually knew when they were going to take the picture. She had calculated it 4 years in advance to let people know, let's let them know ahead of time. Go outside your house, look up, contemplate the amazing...
Enormity of the universe.
The undescribable feeling that you get when you realize how lucky you are to actually have ever been alive, where you are, where you were born, the time you were born. Be thankful for that. Look up and wave because they're taking a picture of the planet Earth from deep
Very
space.
far away.
So people knew ahead of time. They could say, "Yeah, I was." There's me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So we'll get that, and we'll get some links up. I'll put up the link in the video description on that Vatican. I mean, this stuff's not going to go away, and that's the problem until more people realize, holy crap, this is so severe, so deeply entrenched. I mean, we were talking about the diocese
Which are horrible.
in Milwaukee, which was one of the worst ones. But the intimidation tactics they would use against victims to get them to not come up and speak out. When you have a whole department in the Vatican dedicated to dealing with victims' complaints, which that was Ratzinger's job for 24 years before he became Pope. All these abuse cases, the most severe ones, would certainly have come across his desk. So yeah, this is a guy that just kind of resigned saying he was tired or old. Old? That's one of the requirements for the job.
Exactly.
Being feeble. Come on. That's why they keep him in the Pope mobile. They keep him sealed fresh.
Saran wrap them.
So we can do that. Last week, again, the stories you think you've heard everything.
Mm-hmm. It just keeps getting
last
worse.
week, the priest who was on trial in the States actually said as part of his defense statement that he wasn't actually sure, he wasn't fully sure that rape was illegal.
Yeah, sorry, that's bad. Really? I am so sorry.
You know, you come to think of it, it didn't. Now,
And their defense thing, which is, well, he wasn't on duty.
yeah, he wasn't working as a priest at the time, therefore it was in his off time, therefore he was off duty, therefore he wasn't doing that as a priest, but just as a regular guy. Which is insane, because if you're a priest, it's the same as being a cop, right?
Exactly.
That's not just a job you punch in and out of. Okay, hopefully you've made the proper level of commitment to do that as a career and to do it effectively.
And God's not supposed to sleep, so God's watching you.
Okay, my ex-wife's brother is a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it takes a special person, at least to get into it,
Mm-hmm.
but to continue to do a very good job every day, that takes commitment. You're not going to you don't punch in and out and on the way home go,
You take your badge
oh,
out, but
there's
you don't turn your...
well, there's somebody getting mugged. Well, I'm off duty.
It's my lunch break. Sorry.
No, I wish I could help, but and I guess that's one of the differences. We've talked again before how the reaction to a pedophile priest, and mine isn't, I don't think, typical.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want.
You don't
let's
want
kill
him
him, or castrate him, or throw him in a prison cell forever.
to donate
think
him to
that's-
science.
That's basically that's not far off.
Exactly, because...
You're going to have to institutionalize him because you have to keep him from repeating that offense
Exactly.
that we find so,
Offensive.
yeah, uber offensive. Probably one of the worst things you could
Disgusting.
ever do in life, right?
It's downright
Things that
disgusting.
I don't even want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly the person's broken.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really have to debate much over that. But why he's broken, and if that can be fixed, or that could be prevented, or these are worthwhile avenues to pursue, which is far more worthwhile than that ancient residual view of justice
Mm.
that includes at its root not just a kernel, but a huge chunk of that is vengeance, and that's not
Not right.
a
No.
proper way to pursue. So we'll put those links up, and
Guys can go.
well, the
check it out.
difference is I don't know what I found it very difficult earlier to get actual real statistics.
Yeah. 'Cause-
And I wanted to know the difference, for example, between what's the percentage of priests as opposed to Protestant pastors, who I see an awful lot of stories about them. What's the ratio? Are priests really that much more likely? Now, again, there's a lot of aspects of the job where I think it might attract a certain kind of person who might be wanting to hide or whatever. So it's very difficult, and half the statistics I got are from a Catholic website. So I've basically, I've thrown it out. I mean, I'm
Exactly.
not really,
Can't trust it.
fair enough to say it's very hard to get real stats on it. The difference is not with the person perpetrating the problem. All those other, a cop, a Protestant minister to a huge degree, doesn't have a massive, ancient, global network
Mm-hmm.
dedicated to moving them around so they don't get caught, and by default, so they can repeat their offenses.
Exactly.
That's the people that I want in jail
And-
for a long time.
Yeah, the people that enable it, not so much the people that.
And it's not that they were, there's a high number of electricians that are pedophiles, and they have this huge union that is moving them around. No, it's the people that can't say, hey, I have a mental health issue or something wrong with my brain not working right. These people don't have that reason they can give
They're
that
the
they were
only.
enablers, right?
Yeah, the only thing they have is apathy or ignorance. So.
Well, and considering the station that they hold, that they're supposed to kind of be a little bit more pious, or certainly perhaps a little bit more moral,
Mm-hmm.
or at least as moral as the average person you would expect from
Yeah.
somebody who says they are. So if you want to set up, we'll
What am I
get
setting up?
that closing
Oh.
tune.
Oh yeah. I guess we're out of time.
I gotta go. You can stay, but I'm gonna head out.
All right. So thank you very much for listening to the Baal Buster Radio Show. If you guys have any questions or concerns or anything interested in our show, please email us at theballbusterradioshow@gmail.com. And we hope you guys have a lovely, lovely evening. This is dedicated to all the beautiful people out there.
They know who they are.
I have to dedicate. It's kind of our thing to dedicate the last song to somebody.
Well, thanks, Ben. Thanks, Daniel.